draw those cards whatsoever.
Yeah,
He is
or just her to be able to catch them with grief, right?
Yeah,
Like, just don't
yeah, that
have
would
it on
work
turn
too.
1 or whatever. Let me grief it.
Yeah. Okay.
And there it is. That's exactly what's going to happen here.
All right, so it is Zoe on the play here, and
It is
again,
Zoe on the play. Yeah.
can we update the archetypes, please, on the screen? We are playing Modern. We are in game number 1 of Blue Eye Control versus Living End. Yeah. So this will be the determining match to see who faces Jesse Robkin in the finals. And the choice with grief is, well, the cards that Zoe doesn't want to see are not there in hand. They're not present right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Zoe Riederman, I feel like you have to be really excited to see that hand. No Teferis, no Chalice, and your first counterspell now is going to come down on turn 3. You're more or less in the clear to just play your game plan. And we'll see, exactly if Zoe can leverage that fact before Raja finds a way to draw out of it. It doesn't look like Zoe had too many cyclers in the hand, but maybe just a pair of griefs is going to be good enough to bring back and flip the game. We'll see exactly how that plays out.
I mean, drawing another black card, or maybe there is one already in hand. I'm not sure. Is there a Street Wraith? Yeah. So, okay. Well, another grief followed by 2 griefs coming back into play. I mean, that is pretty huge. Raja does have a Solitude, I think. So he wouldn't get completely...
Raja does have a Solitude. I don't think he has a white card to pair with it. So right now, it's going to be slow to operate.
And the draw was
Leyline. Great look at the draw.
It was a Leyline Binding, I believe, which isn't going to help much either. Also, it's not going to be in hand very long.
Yeah, we'll see exactly what happens here. Maybe there's an argument to Leyline Binding the it's about to come down, but we're going to see a cycle instead.
Yeah, so interesting. Zoe's not going to bother with the grief. It's just going to cycle the Street Wraith. And like you're saying, trying to put more cards in the graveyard. And now Waker of Waves is the draw. That would be ideal to already have in the graveyard, but that's not the case. So
it's an interesting spot here. Do you just go for it knowing that Archmage's Charm is on the horizon, or do you Waker of Waves and try to start fighting on the counterspell axis? I think this is the question Zoe's going to have to answer right now as she looks at her hand, including Shardless Agent.
And it's hard to fight because it's Shardless Agent and not Violent Outburst. She can't just hope to find Force Negation and then fight and get the Living End through. That doesn't work on her own turn. So it is just going to be Shardless Agent here.
Yeah, Shardless Agent indeed. And we're seeing, I think there's a Cascade trigger on the stack. Roger doing a little bit of thinking.
Yeah.
No, we know he has access to Solitude and potentially Leyline Binding. You can fetch the tap land and make it cost 1, but I don't know exactly what we're going to be thinking about here.
So if you're
grief, certainly a problem coming back. The rest of it's kind of slow.
Yeah, this is not the best Living End of all time. So what Roger's maybe contemplating here is if you just pitch cast Solitude right now, which has nothing to kill, at least be in the graveyard, and it'll come back in from the Living End and pick off one of the creatures.
Yeah, and stay in play, right?
And stay in play, right.
Life yeah.
So, well, it looks like the rest of the card looks. Oh, he's like, okay, go ahead and Cascade. That's not going to make any difference. I may as well let you do it now while I think about this. And I do like that. There are, on all sorts of, Magic formats and games where it's like, okay, I'm having trouble making a decision. I'm going to let you continue with something that, doesn't really impact it so I can buy more time to think about this.
Well, also, like, you also want to make sure Zoe puts it on the stack, right? Like, if you go hemorrhaging cards left and right,
I suppose,
just like preparing for this Living End, they can just be like, oh, Zoe can be like, oh, okay, I'm not going to cast it. You don't want that to happen. So just make sure it goes to the stack too.
All right, randomize the flip over cards there. They go to the bottom. And then, so this Living End will enter the stack. And then it's decision time for Raja. And it looks like this Living End resolved.
It sure did. And Living End happened. We brought back Street Wraith Grief. I assume that trigger is on the stack as we are fetching. Likely going to make a move here.
All right, so the options based on what cards we know, it could be Leyline Binding. It could be... I mean, it wouldn't make much sense for Raja to decide to Solitude now, so he's clearly chosen not to do it.
Yeah, I think we might be Leyline Binding here.
Sure.
I think we're looking at Rafine's Tower and Ketria Triome, which means that we do have all 5 types, and it is a 1-mana spell. So we're going to go ahead and cast the Leyline Binding. I think the best, Swamp Walk is active, so it is unblockable if that's part of your plan, but Menace is also hard to block. Both 3-power creatures. Not sure the best one to hit. Probably the Wraith. That way, if there is some way to remove the binding, you don't get another ETB trigger.
That is certainly true.
But it's close. It really depends on what you're how you're trying to answer the rest of the board. Because now that they're in play, you have to find a way to answer the creatures that are in play. We'll see exactly what that's going to look like.
All right. So Archmage, Charm, Solitude, and 2 lands. Zoe likely to choose the Charm here, not wanting to put free creatures into Raja's graveyard, right? Well, unless she thinks she can win with this without casting.
Yeah, this is just good enough, right? Yeah. This is a 4-turn clock. We might just be done here. Be like, okay, take your Solitude. I'm not going to cast a spell for the rest of the game. Please never draw something. Yeah, draw no cards that matter. I'm going to kill you.
That's a reasonable thought process. That's not what Zoe's going to choose. She is going to choose the Charm.
Probably better. Hedging your bets, I think, makes a lot more sense. Not either way, I think Raja's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But something like a Teferi into a white card could start to add to the mix. And a white card was drawn. Prismatic Ending.
All right. Prismatic Ending can take out the Shardless Agent. That's not, the way you draw things up when you're putting your deck together, but, it's what Raja...
It does take a lot off the clock.
Yeah. It's what Raja's being presented with right now. So, Living End, not generally great at following up by hardcasting additional creatures, although Curator of Mysteries sometimes occasionally does make it into play. And instead he's going to pick up never mind, he's just I guess he picked up Kahira from the companion zone.
Kahira.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Kahira was in the companion zone, announced. It was off screen a little bit.
Yeah.
We went ahead and picked that one up to hand and solituded right away. Now a lonely Shardless Agent left behind. The shields are down. If Zoe can assemble like another small Living End or what have you, but Solitude being in the graveyard for Raja could pose a big problem to that particular game plan. And maybe we're going to see hard cast Curator of Mysteries.
I think we are. I think that would be an excellent decision here for Zoe. It also makes, the seldom seen actual ability on Curator of Mysteries would. Oh no, she's not going to do it. I'm sorry. I kind of expect
good options, right? Awaker of Waves for a little bit of cantrip action can start to overpower the Solitude as far as getting a big enough Living End for it to matter. And I think another white card drawn for Raja looks like. Oh no, it's the same one. We still have Prismatic Ending. He just pulled that to the front, so didn't get a great look at the draw. Yeah, it looks like 2 lands the rest of the cards. So board clear, but Raja's sitting on 2 lands and no tricks, right? No companions, no things in exile, no more resources. We literally just lands in the top of the deck. Meanwhile, Zoe, quite a bit more than that, as Waker of the Waves going to get cycled, and that gives that powerful ability to look at the top 2, put one in the yard, the other one in the hand.
One of those was a Force. Okay. Force goes to the graveyard.
Interested. Shardless Agent picked up.
Interesting.
Shields are down, so maybe it's just time for. Shardless Agent's so tough. Waker Waves.
It is going to be Shardless Agent. All right, so imagine we're going to cycle this Curator once Living End's found. She doesn't want to actually draw the Living End the last second.
Yeah. I was like, I wonder if we're supposed to cycle first, because what if we had another cycler? But yeah, no, Zoe, obviously much better Living End than me. It's like, well, if I draw Living End, that's really bad, especially this matchup where you can run out of Living Ends. If they all get countered, you start playing Draft Chaff Tribal here, trying to beat down. So instead, going to wait to cycle until after the Living End's already on the stack, and you still have the same kind of option where if you draw another cycler, you're good to go.
Right. Okay, so currently we're bringing back Waker, which is probably going to get tagged by the Solitude, and then this Curator that will be coming in. And is there another card in the graveyard under the Living End? Actually, I'm sure there isn't, because that wouldn't make any sense.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I think the graveyard is otherwise entirely cleared out. Let's see exactly. Raja getting a good look at the cards that are now gone through. Of course, the deck lists are open, but what's important here is that these cards are going to get shuffled and put on bottom. And we see the Colossal Sky Turtle being noted there by Raja. I like looking at the cards anyway. I like that a lot from Raja, noting that Sky Turtle not in hand and specifically not in the top 10, 20 cards of her library either.
That is a one-of, so that he does know now. There's no reason not to pick up all information you can, and he knows that she does not have and is unlikely to draw. In fact, cannot draw Colossal Sky Turtle for the next, 15 turns.
And here comes that cycle that you called out, post Living End being on the stack, land the draw. Not exciting, but some big monsters coming back. Certainly cards that can overpower the Solitude, which is going to come back and probably remove the Waker Waves. I think that one's like a 7/7, going to be the biggest by far. I have to imagine. But the flyer also kind of relevant. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and get rid of that Waker of Waves. That thing is so big. And effectively have put a Curator of Mysteries, a Shardless Agent, and Solitude back into play. We'll see exactly that's going to work out for Zoe Riederman as Teferi picked up. So good thing that Zoe did not wait on that living end, because this Teferi gonna make future living ends, if there are any left, hard to work. As here comes the Teferi. And picking up either of these creatures is just kind of fine for Zoe, right? Like, you just recast it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter. So maybe Raja picks up his own Solitude? Nope, Curator back to hand.
That's the Curator. Now Raja could attack, I suppose. Well, now that you're giving up Teferi, you're definitely not going to do that. So yeah, I'd probably just hang back.
Yeah, definitely want to hang back here. And I mean, it's weird to say it, but Zoe having resolved 2 living ends, Raja feels ahead.
Yeah. Well, these were not like impressive living ends, really. There wasn't that much stuff in the graveyard. These weren't games where Zoe was able to cycle, half a dozen times first. All right, here's the trade-off for the Solitude, which goes back to the graveyard, which is not really where Zoe, I mean, you don't want it in play, obviously, but you don't really want it in the graveyard either.
I mean, I think if there are any future living ends, it's going to be a living end for so big that Solitude no longer matters. We kind of already did the short up small living ends, and Chalice is going to shut down all future living ends. I think with 6 lands in play for Zoe and multiple problems for the actual living ends themselves active, that even if she has more living ends available, we're just still on hard cast the creatures mode. We're just casting the mopey creatures for the rest of the game and hoping that Raja runs out of stuff before Zoe does.
I mean, I think
Charlotte's Agent to pick up.
Is the last card in hand, I think, is it the Leyline Binding? I mean, this is Zoe's now, 2 levels of defense for Raja. Zoe, you're right, is on hardcaster creatures. That's all she's going to be able to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, she has 2 Charlotte's Agents, so, the board's clear. Raja, once again, empty-handed, but, Zoe is going to be able to put enough power to clear the Teferi next turn into play this turn if she chooses to cast both Charlotte's Agents. Of course, living in, not going to function, but even if you had one, I'm not sure you'd even cast it here. Yeah, I mean, very underwhelming.
You're right, and if she does have 2 Charlotte's Agents, I don't think she has a choice. I guess there is the Grief in hand still, so. But yeah, that just doesn't seem. I mean,
I think we're shortcutting here, saying maybe there's no more living ends too. So she's like, I'm shuffling my deck twice, and Raja's gonna take a whole look through the deck, and I think that means there's no more living ends at all, which doesn't matter. But I mean, I guess it's actually good. They're bad draw steps here.
Well, there could be living ends. Zoe's just gonna. Oh, you're right, because otherwise it would stop.
No, he's looking at the whole deck,
you're right.
Which means the whole deck's revealed.
Yeah, you're right. There are no more living ends. So we're on a pair of 2/2s and attackers. And Zoe's like,
versus
it's
Teferi, huh?
This is the way I planned it. I don't want living ends because I can't resolve them anyway, so they may as well not even be in there at this point. I was just like, all right, let me just get a look at everything you have available.
Yeah, just kind of doing counts on what's left. I mean, it's the main deck game, so you can basically calculate. I think you could actually try to figure out exactly what Zoe's card in hand is, which is what Raja's doing here, because deck lists are open. All of the cards in our library, play, exile, what have you. So we're trying to figure out what exactly the last card in Zoe's hand is, given that it is more or less face up. I don't know if Zoe's, I can't hear what the players are saying if she's going to reveal what that is, but that's why Raja's taking so much time looking through information he theoretically already knows, there is some stuff that can be derived here. And a land to pick up for Raja, that's really good if you're a Zoe fan.
Yeah. Nobody's playing Social Colonnade anymore. So lands are not a problem. I mean, Celestial Colonnade would dominate the board right now, but
so big. Sarah Angel on a land? Are you joking? Draw step for Zoe. Didn't get a great look. And I have to imagine that's coming at Teferi. Yeah, no more cards for you, please. Also, maybe some of my cards actually work things like Force Negations and what have you. White card picked up of some kind. Have to imagine that's a prismatic ending. Okay. 3 mana answer a 2/2. Gray Ogres versus Maelstrom Pulse. So this is tough.
All right,
Vindicate.
A land would get. I think Zoe has Striped Riverwinder in hand. Didn't cycle it, hoping to draw a land. Didn't. Also has Architects of Will just drawn. Can't cast that either.
Yeah, I have to imagine we're interested in cycling that one.
Curator works.
Not yet castable.
Curator of Mysteries definitely castable.
So big.
Yeah, that's like a legitimate creature. A 4/4 flyer. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Scries can help find your next land. Yeah, look at this thing. This is one of the cool cards in this deck that you can cast actually very easily. It is only 4 mana, and it's a 4/4 flyer, really big. You mentioned 4/4 flyers looking good here. Archmage's Charm found and immediately cashed in for 2 cards for Raja Sulaiman. And you also get that little bit of scry action, which you have plenty of cycles and discards to do with that. Cool stuff.
All right. So does Zoe cycle and get the scry bonus, or do you just hope to draw a land and get that Striped Riverwinder out there? That may depend on the remains of Raja's turn, which I think I looked away for a second. It looked like he considered fetching with those double flood strands and then may have changed his mind. It would take a fair amount of damage, and maybe he's going to save. If that is a prismatic ending, he might be thinking maybe I should save that for the Curator next turn.
Yeah. God, this is tough. Because, yeah, hitting the Curator is big game. It's by far the biggest thing on the battlefield. But, who knows what Zoe's going to add to the battlefield next turn and how much mana you're going to have to tie up on the next turn, too, based on, because you have to draw something, right? Raja's going to need help from the top of the deck in order to win this game. And so, that's going to require mana, whatever that help looks like. So cashing in mana now, that's why you want to be mana efficient in any game of Magic the Gathering, but particularly so for Raja right now. It's like, all right, if I move now, my next turn, I could end up taxed on mana, even though I have 6 lands in play. And that's never really where you want to be. As I think I didn't get a great look at what was actually picked up there. Is attack for 6 is coming across. Oh, Violent Outburst. We got a Trumpet Blast ready to go.
Hey, I mean, that might, it may come down to that.
It comes up all the time, actually. I feel like every time I watch this deck get played, it's like, all right, this Trumpet Blast going to be huge.
All right. If you're wondering, if you weren't here when we went over the deck list before, and you're wondering on the Supreme Verdict count in Raja Sulaiman's deck, it is 0. So
that's a big game.
The best draws for him at the moment are probably copies of Solitude, maybe Planeswalkers, but Solitude seems like the ideal pickup during most points in time of this game, and maybe even of this match. Charles, are the Living End already locked out and actually already gone? I suppose if
it's not even in the equation anymore.
Yeah.
And Subtlety picked up, it looked like.
Okay. All right. That can that's going to be an unfortunate surprise.
Deploying now. Here we go. Yeah, here comes Prismatic Ending. That one's going to munch up that Curator Mysteries. And a passing of the turn. Charlotation can untap. Once again, life total still very high.
Another Striped Riverwinder, I think.
Maybe it's time to start cycling those. Not totally sure. Nope, not interested, says Zoe Riederman, as another land drawn for Raja. And the subtlety is going to be worth a little bit, right? Like being able to stop the Striped Riverwinder onslaught as soon as it starts.
Yeah.
You can keep one of them out of play for a turn.
It'll be interesting to see when the next Shardless Agent attack here, because the subtlety could come in to block it, and then in that case, the Trumpet Blast would be able to dispatch it. So he draws the land. So Raja, there's no information available to him on what might be going on here, but okay, here is the subtlety. So now Zoe
cashing it out. Wow.
Does Zoe cast the Outburst? No, she's going to let the Shardless Agent die in order to get these Riverwinders on the board.
Yeah, I mean, I like it, right? Just like you have 2 of them. Start this, Raja, it's actually really low, right? Down to 8. So over the next 3 turns, these Riverwinders, I mean, don't they have hexproof? Once they're in play, they're basically just going to stay in play.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a huge problem for Raja.
Yeah, in fact, they cannot be, I guess, dressed down in combination with something else. Otherwise, this draft playable is going to start being very threatening for Raja Sulaiman here. This is not going to be easy to answer.
Yeah, hexproof, a very annoying mechanic for the 0 sweeper blue-white deck, and another land certainly not helping. Top of the deck being pretty brutal to Raja here. Game number 1 in this matchup is subtlety gonna get aggressive.
Yeah, I'm sure
declaration. He's not blocking.
Zoe is thrilled. She's like, whatever you have, the fact that you're attacking me is tremendous. Please do that again. A couple of
Raja picks one of the 3 different lands in hand to play, does so, passes the turn back. So quickly untapping. Have to imagine she's excited to untap with this monstrous 5/5 that's going to rumble across the red zone, putting Raja down to 3.
Yeah, and with another Riverwinder to come, I mean, you can concentrate, okay, how many sweepers are in your deck? Well, I've seen your deck list. As long as I was paying attention to this aspect of it, I know there's no sweepers, so let's run out the other one. Do you have a counter?
Yep.
You do not. Raja Sulaiman, you're done.
You're dead. And another land. Raja's like, are you kidding? I just drew all lands the entire game. And Zoe, despite resolving multiple living ends, looking like it wasn't going to be good enough, Raja